Happy Thanksgiving! Let's talk about some French movies. First up is Belle de Jour. Apparently that's a pun in French. So this is a 1967 movie, and the basic premise is that that woman here is 23 and has been married for years, and she finds herself to be not fulfilled in her relationship with her husband, specifically sexually, because whenever he tries to initiate stuff, she just kind of clams up. So in order to kind of get herself to open up more, to explore her own sexuality, she decides to become a prostitute. I know, it's a big leap. But I don't know, it's really interesting and really fascinating. It's a movie about exploring sexuality, but it's kind of surprisingly not a really sexual movie. That's the most sexual thing, really. That poster is more sexual than the actual movie itself. Um, but yeah, I just found it really fascinating. And it kind of blurs the line too between fantasy and reality because she's constantly fantasizing about all sorts of stuff. There's a character in the movie who's in a lot of the fantasies that I'm not entirely sure he's even a real person. He does talk to some of the other characters sometimes when you're pretty sure it's not a fantasy. But I don't know, especially his last scene. I don't know if that actually happened or if she was just fantasizing that it happened. Um, it also deals with a little bit about obsession, but I think the core of what this movie is, it's kind of more of just essentially a cautionary tale about getting married way too young before because I think she got married when she was 20, and that's way too long. You really don't know who you are as a person yet, and you don't know what you want to be really. You have ideas, you have good solid ideas, and you're on the right path, but I don't think I really knew who I was as a person, truly knew who I was till I was 25, 26. And that's years after this. You need time to explore who you are, especially sexually, but just in general, just who you are. I don't know. It's a really interesting movie and explores lots of different cool ideas. And also, I like the ending is super vague because you don't know what actually is happening. Because is she fantasizing again? What does it mean that she's thinking these things? Um, and it's just really open for interpretation. Could see people arguing that it's against exploring your sexuality. That's the complete opposite of how I'm interpreting this movie. But I can still see people interpreting it in that way, which is so fascinating. So yeah, this is really cool. If you want an interesting French movie that surprisingly isn't sexual, even though it's about sexuality, give us a watch. It's good. Next up is Lady J. This is a 2018 movie starring the woman who starred in High Tension, playing an oddly similar character. So the basic premise is that it's 18 or 1800s France, olden times, and she's a widower, and there's this guy who's kind of known to sleep around with women. He'll have his way with them for 2 weeks and then be on to the next target. He's going after her, and he spends 6 months going after her, and she's like, I'm only gonna do it if you really have feelings for me. He's like, I really truly do. And then they're a couple for a couple years, but then he gets tired of her and moves on, and she gets real pissed. So she then spends the rest of the movie just trying to manipulate him into lots of pain equal to or greater than what she experienced. So really, it's a revenge film, and it's really solid. My only complaint about the movie doesn't actually have to do with the movie itself. It has to do with Netflix, because the subtitles or closed captioning for it went way too fast. It was literally as soon as someone was done speaking, they were gone. And it was just it was impossible to keep up. There were so many things that I just missed, and so it was hard for me to understand what was actually happening at times. So I had to rewind so many times, and then also just look stuff up occasionally just because I'm wait, no, what's happening? I don't get this. And it's just it's not the movie's fault. I know it's not the movie's fault. It's literally because I just couldn't read fast enough to keep up with the closed captioning. Which is so frustrating because, again, it's really solid. I put it in the quite liked category. And I wanted to put it higher, but I just couldn't justify it just because it was so hard to follow because of the closed captioning. So if I ever watch it again, I think I'm going to end up putting it in the really liked category just because it's manipulative. She's so evil, but also he's kind of evil, and And then the title, Lady J, actually refers to this other woman who's about my age, who the main character is also manipulating to hurt the older dude. And honestly, the main woman, she kind of reminds me, it kind of reminds me a bit of Gone Girl. So if you've seen that, it's kind of similar-ish vibes to what's going on there, because she's just like, she's so terrifying, but at the same time, I'm like, keep doing what you're doing. It's, yeah, no. So yeah, it's good, it's solid. Again, just Netflix sucks. I'm really frustrated by that, but I watched it, so it's done. Yeah, so good movie, quite liked. And lastly is Brotherhood of the Wolf. This is a 2001 movie starring the bad guy from John Wick 3, the bad guy from Westworld Season 3, and that one French chick from the second and third Matrix movies, as well as some other people. The basic premise, it's kind of based on a real thing, actually. So in olden times France, there was this beast who was going around killing people. And people kind of thought it was a wolf, but it could be more than a wolf. It looks bigger than a wolf. So the king sent a bunch of people to go hunt it. And their main character, this dude who I didn't actually list, he is a researcher, animal researcher, who is also really good at fighting, who's just kind of there. Once they eventually kill the beast, the king wants him to examine the beast for research purposes. And yeah, the movie's pretty solid. It's got a solid premise. The villain is super, super creepy. Like, I really liked him. He really helped carry the movie. And the action stuff is really, really great. Like, they can really both fight. All the fight scenes are great. So they're kind of cut to hell. Like, I feel like, yeah, I think it was more stylistically, but it kind of felt like the director just didn't trust the abilities of the actors, but the actors did so well. It has very, very dated CGI, which is kind of rough. And like, the thing that got me the most though was just the length of the movie, because it was 2.5 hours long, and you felt those 2.5 hours. They easily could have cut out like 45 minutes to an hour, and it would have been a lot better. But, and also, I guess, another thing I wasn't a huge fan of was the main actor. He's like 40, and he looks like he's almost 50. And he's hitting on this girl who's like 20, and it's, ugh. But for all my complaints, I still liked it, still enjoyed it. I don't know if I said this, Justin actually recommended it to me. He had a Blu-ray and lent it to me. I don't know if I'd really recommend this movie. Maybe as like a background movie, like one of those movies to have on where like you're doing other stuff, or like you're having friends over and you just want kind of some noise on in the background. Every now and again you can see some action or something. Yeah, it's fine. It's all right. Again, middle of the road. I liked it. Yeah.